Welcome to Rome. I'm Colleen Carroll Campbell, and since Wednesday night, we've all been getting to know Pope Francis. It took the elector cardinals only 5 votes to choose Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio as the new Holy Father. Among those 115 electors was Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York, and he joins us now. Your Eminence, thank
Colleen,
you so much.
nice to be with. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, so
sure
great.
Beats Birmingham, doesn't it?
We got
nice
a good
background.
Pretty good, huh? Nice digs.
Good to be with you.
Oh.
I'm thrilled you're on now. This is great, and you're going to do the daily news show.
That's right, EWTN
Excellent.
News Nightly. So I hope you're going to join us on that
Count me
newscast.
in.
All
Count
right.
me in.
All right.
Better you than Tom Brokaw or any day. So, all right.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's an honor to have you with us. And I guess my first question is, what was it like, your first conclave?
Listen, I'll never forget it. In fact, I'm looking forward to, pardon the use of a cliche, to process all of this.
Right.
Because every day I'll remember something new, and I'll be reflecting about it or praying about it. And it's a beautiful thing to recall those different moments and those different, actually since I got here, and I heard, even before the conclave when we had the congregations, remember? And I would hear the older cardinals who have been through this, and they would speak about it. And at first I thought, this is probably obligatory piety or something. But they would say, you will gradually begin to sense a very gentle move of the Holy Spirit. And that happened all through. As you got to know the cardinals better, as you listened to them, as you prayed together, as you took your meals together, as you chat among yourselves about the issues of pastoral urgency in the life of the church and about the different cardinals. And there was a beautiful, just a move towards a resignation, a trust in God's will, and a overwhelmingly enthusiastic consensus about the new Pope. It was a beautiful experience.
Wow. And the conclave process is often described as secretive, and yet obviously that tradition is in place for a reason. Is that part of it, what you're describing?
Oh, definitely. And I think there's a difference between being secretive and having a climate of confidentiality and trust, which every profession at every level of society needs. I can remember as a child, sometimes my mom and dad would say, we need to have a family meeting, and we're sitting around the table and this doesn't go any further. That's beautiful, necessary climate of trust and confidentiality. So it is within the College of Cardinals. It protects us, it enables us to speak freely and openly for the good of the church. It's boy, oh boy, if time is any experience, this works, because it's been with the church for centuries. And I could see the wisdom. The whole protocol of the conclave, which is centuries old and which is spelled out in the Latin books that we got. At the beginning you'd think, well, this might seem somewhat medieval, but as it developed, you'd see the wisdom. You'd see the quiet and the space and the time for prayer and discernment. Well done.
Well, what can you tell us about our
Nothing.
new Holy Father?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me about the conclave.
I was going to try to weasel into that later, but I mean, we were very surprised, many of us. I think 8 years ago we might not have been so surprised, but he was not really considered as much.
Colleen, am surprised that the world is surprised, because the College of Cardinals was not surprised at all.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know the man. I have to be very honest. I had never met him. I knew of him very much. I've admired him for a long time. I've listened to what he said. I was aware of his reputation in Buenos Aires. I heard some of those cardinals who had participated in the conclave of 2005 without breaking confidentiality, because they take that with extraordinary scrupulosity, but in general conversation would let us know how impressed they had been with him, the last one. And so I was watching him from the beginning. I had never met the man, and you know me, when I went into the congregations with the cardinals for the first time, I'd go around and introduce myself. And all of a sudden I felt a tap on my back, and I turned around, and he said, I'm Jorge Bergoglio. I'm the Archbishop of Buenos Aires, and you're Timothy Dolan, the Archbishop of New York. It was very direct, and I appreciated that. I didn't have to go up to him and introduce myself. So that was the first time I had met him. I listened to him in the congregation, and I would listen to other cardinals speak about him with admiration and respect. So I feel like I know him now. now I'm getting to know him. You've seen him longer than I have. You were just at the audience this morning, so, and I'm sure you're going to talk about that, I hope. But so now I feel with the rest of the world that I'm getting to know and love him even better.
And what are some of the qualities you think that?
Well, you know, we don't want to overdo this, but it's you only overdo things because they're so blatantly true. He's a man of obvious sincerity and simplicity. You could see it in the beginning.
Right.
He's just, I'll never forget as he came out of what's called the Room of Tears, where the new Pope goes to get his new cassock on. And when he came out and we kind of started applauding, and he kind of looked and he shrugged like,
Did he?
well, how am I ended up in there? And then they brought him up to the chair. While he was in there, they had moved the throne up, and they brought him up, and he kind of looked at the master of ceremonies and said, am I supposed to sit here? And they said, yeah. And he said, no, I'm going to go back down to the floor. And he met us there literally on the same level. So there's a lot of little signs that are winsome. And I don't think they're staged or anything. It's just the way he is. So I love him already. And what I was flattered with, again, when I went up to him within the Sistine Chapel, as all the cardinals went up,
yes,
he called me by name.
Oh, he did.
And then yesterday again, he called me by name. So not bad.
And you gave him kind of your quasi-bear hug,
my people still call me
you?
Cardinal O'Connor or Cardinal Egan. They don't even know me. And here he's calling me
He's got
Timothy.
it right.
Not bad.
And we saw you gave him a good grip there and a good warm embrace.
I want to tell him, you know, we love you and we're with you all the way, and do not be afraid. So sometimes, you know, we know the Holy Father's always encouraging us, and I'm glad he is. That's what the successor of Peter is supposed to do, confirm us in the faith. But we got to do that for him. Right. We have to. That's why I loved it. You know, when I was a student here in Rome, Colleen, and then again as rector, you'd often go down and see the Pope at the Sunday at the Angelus, like we'll all do tomorrow. And of course, we'd go to receive his blessing. But I would being a priest, I would very quietly, I'd kind of sneak a blessing to him. Because I said, Holy Father, you need God's blessings too. So the other night, what did he do? He said, would you all pray with me and for me? Would you all ask God to bless me? So we need to do that to encourage him, because he's got a rough job. And the poor guy, he's 76, he's moving. Okay, you know, you're just at the stage in your life where you think, well, I don't have to unpack anymore. And now this is rough for him. And so we got to love him and encourage him. And I told him that again. Yesterday. I said, you say but the word, we're here for you. So.
And now tell me a bit about your reflection on this idea of the Bishop of Rome. And you mentioned this on your own radio show yesterday, and I thought you had a really interesting take on why he's been using that a lot in terms of trying to explain the role that Pope Benedict Emeritus will have and that transition for people. You were saying maybe it's helpful to think of them as bishop and retired bishop in a sense.
Could be. That was actually Father de Sousa's insight, which I think is a very good one. It helps us catechetically to kind of get used to the fact, because we're all used to a retired bishop, but the whole idea of a former pope is somewhat alien to us. So he might be thoughtfully trying to just give us a comfort zone. Right. But it's a good theological, it's not new, it's back to about the year 40 AD. When St. Peter came, he founded the church where? Here in Rome. He was the first bishop of Rome. Somebody was interviewing once and said, boy, you know, in addition to being Pope, he's also Bishop of Rome. I said, it's backwards. He's Pope because he's Bishop of Rome. Now, and all the popes have taken that seriously. He seems to, from the beginning, be emphasizing it. He may have rediscovered an insight that Pope John Paul II had. You know, when John Paul II came to be Bishop of Rome from being Bishop of Krakow. And when he got here, George Weigel, the biographer, tells us it wasn't a big leap for him, because he said, well, I'm kind of used to being a diocesan bishop, and maybe now I'll do in Rome what I did in Krakow. And Rome almost then becomes a classroom for the world. As you watch the Pope in action in Rome, all of us who are bishops in the other 3,000 dioceses around the world say, hey, not a bad idea. Look what he's doing in Rome. Why don't we try to do that here? So he can set a good example. And I think that's a great thing for. And did you see in the audience that he had for us cardinals yesterday? He looked out at us. He said, you know, in a way, you're my priests, the cardinals. He said, and we're pastors of the parishes in Rome. That's why we have these titular churches, because we're honorary pastors in Rome. And he kind of said, well, you're my priest, so I need to stay close to you, and you need to stay close to me. Beautiful, beautiful image.
So you're excited about what you're going to see from Pope Francis?
Oh, I hope it's obvious. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I look forward to talking to you more about it.
Thank you. I hope you will.
When we get back home.
Thank you, Your Eminence.
Thank you
so much for joining us. Well, we're going to run to a break right now, but stay with us, and we'll have more for you on EWTN Vatican Daily. audience hall. This was the scene this morning in the Vatican's Paul VI audience hall as Pope Francis met just some of the 6,000 or so journalists who've been in Rome covering the conclave. That included myself, as you can see, and my production assistant there, little Clara, and my husband with the camera there, John Campbell. So obviously quite a lot of us there. Those present heard the Pope say that it was the job of journalists to seek the truth. He also said it was the job of the Church to propose truth, beauty, and goodness to all people. As we're getting used to, the Pope's style was warm and informal. Watching on This Morning is Father Raymond de Souza, priest and journalist. He's been writing daily from Rome for Canada's National Post. And with him is Alejandro Bermudez, editor-in-chief of the Denver-based Catholic news agency. And we also have our own David Eubing. So welcome to all of you. And it was an exciting morning. I guess, Father Raymond, I'll start with you and we'll work our way down. Any thoughts on the Pope's remarks?
Well, this is a tradition. John Paul started this meeting with the journalists, and Benedict did it. So I think now the journalists look forward to it, and it's a nice reward. They've been working very hard at long hours here, and so this is a moment to acknowledge their good work. And the Pope was very animated with them, very warm, very informal with them. And in terms of news, it's very important because, as you remember, the oath that those cardinals took in the conclave, the very long oath, it says that they can't say anything about what went on inside, except if they have the explicit permission of the Roman Pontiff. So the only one who can speak freely, as he did this morning,
yes,
about what happened in the conclave without being excommunicated is the Pope. So it's actually interesting. It's a warm, fraternal kind of professional exchange, but it also is a very important source of news because he's the only one who can say, without any special permission given, what took place, and he mentioned some of those things this morning.
And Alejandro, what were your thoughts on what you heard and what you saw?
I am a little bit accustomed to his Argentinian sense of humor.
Yeah.
I was really expecting something out of the screenplay, and it happened with his explanation of how it all played out in the choice of his name.
Tell our viewers a bit about what he said. He had people breaking up.
Oh, absolutely. First, the essential part was the explanation of why, for him, the Brazilian Cardinal Wuerl, who was comforting him as the votes were piling up in his favor, at the end when he was elected, told him, "Do not forget about the poor." And since the election continued, he started thinking about that and thinking about peace. That's what he told us, and that name came to his mind.
That's how
the
we
saint,
got Francis of Assisi.
Exactly, the saint that is both the patron saint of someone who chose poorness and the patron saint of peace. So that's where Francis comes from. And then he made a quite revealing joke, which is basically a sign that, listen, I am aware of these issues. When he said, I was jokingly suggest to take the name of one of the most important reformists, popes, because of the need to reform the Curia. So, and then he moved on to the next joke, and then I was told to choose Clement XV in a kind of get back to Clement XIV, who was the one that suspended the Society of Jesus. So, but this was very funny, unusual from a pope, but in the other hand, slightly revealing that he's aware that there is a Jesuit issue and there is a Curia issue, and he's not oblivious of all that.
Right. David, what were your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Alejandro, you could probably fill us in a little bit more on this, but if I remember correctly, he was at one point sent from his job up to somewhere in the north of Argentina because he kind of ruffled a few feathers with his strong defense of the faith. And so that's a little added insight, I think, into what might be to come. Who knows? We'll see how it plays out.
And what did you think of his manner? I mean, I was struck by the way, first, once again, he puts down the script and just starts talking.
Yeah.
Hand gestures get animated. He's laughing. He's got people genuinely laughing, and for an extended time. And then as certain invited journalists came up to speak to him, he was embracing them. You know,
That's right,
he blessed a dog at one point and broke everyone up. Just that warmth and that personality. I think he was really winning over the crowd, and I imagine some of that is part of his culture and his background and just his sensibility. Would you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are in Buenos Aires, your first impression, a little bit like the Romans, is that they are, you know, really aggressive, straightforward. But on the second thought, you find that when you're asking for help, you have like 4 or 5 people stopping, and then if you're asking for directions, you made up with a little crowd guiding you to a place, because they are, you know, very, very, very warm, very, very, very warm. So I think this is exactly the way he is. He has shown that very well, and maybe you saw Peggy Noonan's article saying that, oh my gosh, he's shy, when she saw him for the first time at the loggia. So yes, the first sensation, the first impression is that you may have is that he is very short in gestures, but when he speaks, he shows his warmth immediately.
And Father Raymond, he's already kind of shaking things up 72 hours in. You know, a lot of unscripted moments and people talking,
and that
excited.
will probably, I imagine, will stop soon enough, because for these kind of introductory meetings where there's a great spirit of conviviality in the air, it's not only it's suitable, it actually is enjoyable for a lot of people, but every word that he says, people are looking, they're quoting it in homilies and research papers, and not to mention the journalists who are covering it. So he can do it, obviously, he's done it very well, but you know, when he gives his inaugural homily on Tuesday, that's the kind of thing where it's referred to for decades afterwards. So I'm sure people are telling him, Your Holiness, maybe a little less, and he doesn't have to constrain himself. But I think we should enjoy these first days because they do have a convivial spirit. And he let out one of the secrets he let out in terms of the role of Cardinal Humes, a Brazilian Franciscan, is that now those Jesuits who wonder why he took a Franciscan name will know there's a Franciscan whispering in his ear right there in the conclave. So we've got a little grist for the mill now between the Franciscans and Jesuits.
I want their father to do a friendly bet. I think this is not going to stop.
Yeah.
I think this is part of who he is.
Yes, and I even bet that his homily, and it's always dangerous to try to do predictions, especially for journalists. But I would lean to say that that his homily on Tuesday is not going to be a programmatic homily. I think it's going to be a strongly devotional homily on St. Joseph. I've seen him before speaking about St. Joseph. He has a huge devotion to St. Joseph, and it will be programmatic in the fact that it is not programmatic. So it will be kind of a signal, but Father may be right, I may be wrong.
Well, something to watch. And we have to run to another break, but stay with us. We'll be talking soon with Cardinal Wuerl of Washington, D.C. Warm embrace between brother bishops. Pope Francis greets Cardinal Donald Wuerl of D.C. That was yesterday, and I'm pleased to say Cardinal Wuerl joins me now. Welcome, Your Eminence.
Colleen, good to be with you. It's great to be here.
Well, I'm honored to have you, and this was your first conclave as an elector, but not your first time ever in a conclave. Could you tell our viewers just a bit about 1978?
I was in the conclave that elected Blessed John Paul II, but I was there as an assistant because the cardinal I was assisting was in a wheelchair, Cardinal John Wright, who was prefect then of the Congregation for Clergy. So I had permission to be in the conclave to assist him. And the excitement of seeing Blessed John Paul II emerge from that conclave was second only to this conclave, to see Pope Francis come out onto that balcony and to hear this huge crowd. One of the things that I will always remember, though, is before they even parted the curtains, before he came out, the white smoke had announced we had a pope, and the crowd was cheering, "Viva el Papa." In a way, they were saying, we have a pope. Thank God we have a pope. It doesn't matter who, we have a pope. And then when we found out who it was, this beautiful, loving pastor, and he just embraced Rome as any new bishop would embrace his new diocese.
And that crowd really embraced him, didn't they?
The love was almost immediate, wasn't it? Talk about love at first sight. He stepped out there and said, "Good evening," just like you would do if you were coming into your diocese for the first time.
Right.
Hi. And they all just, this emotion of affection for him just exploded.
Now, were you on the balcony at the time, one of the
Several,
balconies?
yes, several balconies
So what's
over.
that view like when you've been part of electing a new Holy Father
well,
and you're standing on that balcony?
You don't see him, but you see the crowd. And I think that's probably something that I will carry in my mind's eye for the rest of my life. Two things that will go with me forever. One was the sense inside the conclave of the presence of the Holy Spirit. I was told by an older Italian cardinal who was not voting in this conclave, when you're in there and they close the doors, you will know that God is with you. And it turned out to be true.
Just a sense of peace, or how was it
You
more
just
distinctive
feel
to you?
There's a peace, but there's also in your heart, you know, this is the person I'm going to. This is the person I'm going to vote for. But then when he stepped out onto that balcony, and it was sort of a worldwide confirmation. People from all over the world cheering. And this is history. The first pope from the New World. The first pope from the Western Hemisphere. Isn't it wonderful to belong to a church that is 2,000 years old and can think of a place that's only been around for a half a millennium as the New World?
And what does this mean for North America?
Oh, I think, as Blessed John Paul told us, we're all one America. We need to think that way. We need to talk that way. We're all one America. And so I think he is as much
He's one
our
of our
Pope
own.
as he is Argentina, as he is South America. He's our Pope from our hemisphere. It's like we've made it.
Tell us now, obviously you're involved with the Synod for the New Evangelization. Where do you see Pope Francis taking us in this new evangelization? Is this a theme we're going to see him pick up?
Colleen, I think that is going to be the focus of his ministry. It will be a different way, but I think without missing a beat, he is going to follow in the path of Blessed John Paul and the path of Benedict, saying the new evangelization is where it's at today. That's the work of the church. That's the task of the church, to bring back those who have drifted away, or to announce in a way that others may be hearing it for the first time in a really meaningful way. But the difference, I think, is he is saying to us, he's saying to the whole church, you do this with the way you live as much as with what you say.
Will that be the gift he brings to the new evangelization?
I think it's going to be a gift of personal testimony. You look at him, you hear him, and what you hear corresponds to what you see. He's going to be calling all of us to live as faithfully the gospel as we proclaim it. Maybe that's why he took the name Francis. He said he wanted to follow in the example of Francis of Assisi. And Francis of Assisi was a demanding character. You know, we see these statues of him in bird baths. That's not the Francis of Assisi of history.
Right.
He's the one who said, you have to live the gospel at its fullness. You have to take as seriously as possible these words of salvation. And he did. And isn't that why people flocked to him? They loved him because they saw Christ in him. I think what they saw in Pope Francis was Christ.
Thank you so much for joining us, Cardinal Wuerl.
You're welcome, Colleen. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you.
Well, that's all for now. Thank you for joining us. I'm Colleen Carroll Campbell, and what a difference 72 hours makes.
And there you have it, the end of our Vatican Daily for today, and some scenes there from the past week with our new Holy Father, Pope Francis. And thank you so much, Colleen. It's so great to see you. Great to see Cardinal Dolan, Cardinal Wuerl, and at the audience earlier with the media people, it was good to see Colleen and her family, as she noted. And also, I wanted to give a shout out to Jeff Hahn from our online department, also Peter Gagnon, who's been coordinating all the productions out there in Rome. I also caught a quick glimpse of him, so your family should be happy they saw you. Another piece of information that's just new, this just came up this morning. There will be a Holy Mass with Pope Francis at St. Anne's Parish in Vatican City. Now, earlier today, we were aware that that event was happening, but it was unclear that it would be televised. Now we have confirmation it will be televised. EWTN, of course, will carry it. That is tomorrow, Sunday at 4:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Holy Mass with Pope Francis at St. Anne's Parish. And of course, the Pope Francis audience I alluded to earlier for journalists and media, which Colleen was talking about, will encore, if you missed it, at 2 p.m. this afternoon. And again, just a reminder on these times, go to our website, EWTN.com, where you can get the actual time zone for your particular area and your particular EWTN channel, and depending on where in the world you're watching us. And there you can see some wonderful footage and a wonderful message. Support our EWTN coverage. That's a wonderful message as well. So don't forget that we're also going to have the first Sunday Angelus with Pope Francis. That was originally what we thought the only event was going to be, but of course there's a Mass now. That's tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time, repeated with an encore at 10 a.m. and then 4 p.m. Eastern as well. And then on Monday, we continue with Vatican Daily, EWTN's Vatican Daily with Colleen Carroll Campbell, as we move into our 18, 19, 20 days of day-by-day coverage directly from Rome. And of course, everything will really finish itself up with the Mass for the inauguration of the Pontificate of Pope Francis. Now, this is a new time, Tuesday at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Time. New time. Again, check our website. Stay with us. Things can change. And an encore projected at 6 p.m. Eastern and then at midnight Eastern. And I believe there's also, I saw Cardinal Wuerl, and of course, Washington, D.C. We will have a massive Thanksgiving for the election of Pope Francis from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception from Washington, D.C. This is Tuesday at noon Eastern Time. A massive Thanksgiving also on Tuesday. But events are added, they're moved around, so stay with us. Go to our website for the latest bit of information. Don't forget, a lot of people want to find about St. Francis. We've got some books by G.K. Chesterton and St. Bonaventure, and a wonderful series that Father Connor did on the major religious orders. So if you're wondering, Jesuits, Franciscans, how does it work together? That's something you should think about. Check out our EWTNReligiousCatalog.com, 1-800-854-6316. And just a reminder, we need your financial support. We've had over 200 plus hours of original live programming from Rome, and it's only because you've supported us. We want to stand with you. You stand with us as we stand with our Holy Father. Stay with us as we continue our coverage through Tuesday here on EWTN.